I'm going to say good morning to you, even though it is good afternoon here. How is your day going aside from answering fake news media questions, Ned?
So far, so good. Got up on the right side of the bed, took my kid to school, and we're off to a banging start. I got fresh flowers. They smell great. Let's go.
Yeah. So, in your case, a lot of times when I'm doing junkets, all you really have to talk about is there's a new film, there's a new album, that's that. But you've kind of got your life as an actor now. You got it back. You've got your life as a musician. You've got your life actually practicing medicine in some form and actually helping human beings and all that. So, what is your profession? How do I describe you these days, Ned?
It sort of jumps around from moment to moment, but I primarily identify as an artist, which includes primarily music. That's how I identify. Like in this 21st century of how do you identify? I identify first and foremost as a musician. It's my number one favorite thing to do. I find it's like the most pure form of creativity for me and
Hmm.
enjoyment, excitement. And secondarily, I would describe myself as a actor, I guess. And then I would overall describe me as a person that is an artist with like creative flair that maneuvered into medicine sort of just to bring balance to my life and to bring stability to my life when I decided to start a family. So, but I actually have a true passion for nursing as well.
Right. So you've answered this question before, but can you give me the concise way of how the people of the pit realized, hey, we've got a two for one in a person that actually is training, but actually can act?
So about 5 years ago, I became a nurse. I had gone through several years of school, um, again, seeking something that was a little bit stable and something new and something like a fresh kind of adventure because I was sort of burned
Yeah.
out of being on the road with the band and, living amongst lots and lots of friends and stuff that were all on that same kind of pathway. I wanted something unique.
Yeah.
And um, anyway, I worked as a nurse for several years. One of the doctors that I work with is a man named Dr. Joe Sachs, and I had worked with him for a couple of years. And he knew everything about me, but he never once revealed until after I'd already worked with him a couple of years that he used to work on ER. And he was telling me one day while we were working at an real ER shift, about how there was this new project he was excited about, he was working on, and they were about to start pitching. And then he told me about his ER background. Of course, my jaw hit the ground because I had no idea he had this background. But he's a great dude. And he started telling me about the pit. My first instinct was to pitch my wife, who's a real professional television actress, and I thought she would
Sure.
be great for the show. I was like, "Oh, you got to see Sarah. She's amazing." My wife, Sarah Jane Morris. Didn't think much of it, and then a couple months, later, it was like, "We sold the show to HBO." Wow, that's cool, man! Congratulations, that's great. You're gonna have a great time doing that. I didn't think anything of it again, and finally, it rolled around to production, and I got a call about kind of gauging my interest in coming on to work more in like a medical advisory position.
Right.
Um, and I sort of explained that my true like passion was performing. I thought it would be hard for me to be on the set right next to all the performers and the story making and the creative side of it, and while just doing the med tech kind of stuff. Although it turns out the med tech stuff on the pit is really fun and it's a huge part of the show.
Really?
So I let them know I was really happy in my current situation, but if there was any kind of like roles that they were looking to fill, I would love to audition. So they brought me into audition. I worked pretty hard on it, took some big risks in the room, and left feeling like, wow, that was great. Did a little bit of improv, like show them that I really understand real
Hmm.
nursing, real scenarios, while also trying to make a colorful character. And then ultimately, they invited me to join the pit for episodes one, two, three, and I did those, and then it became four, five, six, and then just kept going and going and going. So in the end, I was involved in I think 13 out of the 15 episodes.
Dr. Jesse is credited as being in 13 episodes. And
Yeah.
is Dr. Jesse, of course, you're given a script that says this is what you're playing, but did you personally base it on anyone you knew or any scenarios that you were involved in?
Well, technically, it's Nurse Jesse, and he's sort of the audition scene was amazing because it was this two-pager that I didn't even know who was playing which character, but I came to realize once we started that it was a two-page scene with Dr. Robbie, who's played by Noah Wiley. And in
Yeah.
this 2 pages, there was a ton of color in this character. Um, it had all the blueprint in this audition scene that I needed for this guy. And then I
Right.
sort of hybrided that with, real kind of ER characters that you meet. There's kind of this like renegade type of nurse that ends up in nursing. Maybe they were in a rock band. It's these kind of like people that have tattoos. It's this kind of different kind of nurse than you might see on the floor.
Mhm.
So I wanted to like show some of that because I don't think that's always like reflected in television. I haven't really seen it. And it seemed really appropriate for the personality that they sort of presented me on that two-page scene. So once I got the part, I talked to costuming. I'm like, yeah, I think this guy should have a nose ring. We have an earring and a nose ring on the show and like black
Right.
van, the cool jogger scrubs. And, they rolled up my sleeves a little bit so we could see my tattoo. I wanted to cover myself with tattoos, but I realized quickly through help with hair and makeup and advice, like that's going to be a huge pain in the ass because every day you got to look the exact same. So that means every morning that's going to be extra hours of putting on tattoos. So we got off of that, but that was kind of like the creation of the character. And it's a really small part, but I think it's like a little colorful piece of the fabric of the show. And, that goes for like all the people. There's a lot of characters.
I'm not saying small part. When you're in 13 episodes of anything, that's not a small part because you're part of, I think what the fans call the universe. So if they do the amusement park ride of the Pit, they have to have you in there.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we'll see. I have no perspective on like how much people, I mean, I'm starting to because people will be like, hey, do I know you? It's like little bits like that, but it's
Yeah.
really hard for me being inside me to know, like, I don't know, do I seem like an extra? Do people notice this guy? Like, I can't tell any of that. It's hard for me to wrap my head around.
Right. So is it irony or coincidence that your musical endeavor that you showed me, Blood Work by Design, has blood in it while you have the nursing relating career?
Yeah, this new music project. So I was working on the Pit for 6 episodes, and then kind of out of left field, I was kind of put on the bench for 2 episodes in the middle of the season. So I had all this time all of a sudden, and but working around the television set in that world again, it really like started turning my wheels of creativity. Like working in television is not always a creative pursuit,
Right.
entirely. It's kind of like often mechanical. Put this here at
Well,
this
to
time.
rudely interrupt you, a lot of waiting around.
There's the waiting around, all
Yeah.
that stuff. But you're surrounded by all these creative people, from the camera department to the art department and all the other actors. So it really got like those like kind of creative wheels turning, and I had to put it somewhere. And then all of a sudden I had, about a month off. So decided I've been really inspired by electronic music. So I linked up with one of my friends who I had worked on a couple of different music pieces for cartoons the last few years. Really
Mhm.
great collaboration, and talked to him. I'm like, I want to do some kind of electronic music. I've been a rock guy my whole life. So anyway, we
Right.
started working on a project, which we haven't put out yet, but we will this year. Um, and yeah, we decided to call it Blood Work because blood work's like a really common nursing name. And then we spelled the work WERK as sort of a nod to craft work. So that's something that's like in its infancy, but it's been really fun for me.
Musically, it is the opposite of what we've seen from the work that you've done alongside Mark Maron or Rooney and all that. So this whole time, they've kind of pigeonholed you as a power pop guy, but that's not really what you do.
Yeah, the new stuff, it's like I have this long history of working in like, yeah, pop rock bands and stuff. I was always sort of a rock band guy. I started going to Burning Man 4 years ago, and
Okay.
it just like totally opened up my mind to electronic music in a way that I never really understood before or appreciated. Um, and so I started exploring that more and found it was like really fun to make music. It's still like making pop songs, but like you're painting with a whole different set of art supplies is how I would describe it. So I'm still using these same skills, but like instead of drums and guitars, we're using like lots of synthesizers and drum machines and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And it's kind of inspired by like a lot of the sort of French stuff, like Justice and Daft Punk and stuff, kind of meets like a Los Angeles 80s movie soundtrack kind of sounds. So my friend John Lowe and I work on it together, and it's just been super fun. He composes a lot of stuff for documentary television. So for him, it's fun to like do colorful music, and I'm feeling like the same thing. So
Eventual goal of doing a live DJ set, is that part of the plans?
I think so. Like what we want to do, we're going to finish a few more songs. We have like two that we finished and, a whole bunch of like half finished pieces that we're going to start working on now that I've wrapped on the TV show. We're going to, yeah, it has a whole colorful visual concept too. So we're going to just work on it. It's purely for fun. But then, of course, like the more I do it, I'm like, this is really cool. Now I want to perform. I don't even know how to perform this music live. So that's something like we want to focus on moving forward, but we're just starting to like get it off the ground.
So family life aside, your life these days is nothing like where it was 5 years ago, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like a constant development and change, but I started moving into medicine. First I worked with the fire department as an EMT, and then I was kind of going down that path, and then also exploring nursing school, which was very challenging to get into. I eventually got into UCLA to this cool master's program. And so
Mhm.
that's been like constant learning too. I've been nursing 5 years, but I'm still learning so much every day, um, in that field. So I guess it is pretty different, but it's kind of been a slow morph. And now I kind of have this cool balance of art and science, and I love both. So they like offset each other great. And it makes for like me, I'm always stimulated with the different work I'm doing because it's like, okay, you're working on the Pitt for a while, and then the Pitt ended, and I went straight back into nursing. And some people were like, "Oh man, is that kind of a bummer?" No, it's great because I love the doctors I work with. So all of a sudden, I'm back with um, some other group of friends, and then I'll go work on some
Right.
music, and then I'll go out on the road with my Fleetwood Mac show that travels and plays a lot. So I have all these different things that I like almost equally, and I get to kind of bounce from thing to thing. And I think for my ADD brain is like great.
Well, as the second most famous EMT musician behind David Lee Roth, I'm sure that was your big inspiration to go into that path, right? DLR?
100%. He was actually legit my first like rock star I fell in love with, in my single digit age. Yeah. Yeah. From my,
Oh,
brother.
I actually never knew that and never would have thought that about you.
Yeah. That was like the first piece of music that I remember being like really young and being like, oh my God, what is this? And in a weird way, I feel like that almost might have been the very initial spark that like ignited my interest in music.
Yankee Rose or Van Halen Jump Panama kind of stuff?
I think it would have been like Jump Panama, and I was probably, 5 years old or something, 6, I don't know. I was little. I remember, a neighborhood kid that was old, the big kids listened to that, and I was, whoa,
Wow.
cool. Yeah.
Does that mean that your drumming eventually you perfected the Alex Van Halen snare sound?
I wouldn't describe my snare sound as the similar. I love that guy's sounds though. They're so unique. It's such a colorful part of that band. And I just read actually his book on the Pit set, and it was great. I read it in like 2 days. It's called Brothers. It was a pretty interesting read.
For sure. So having a foot back into acting thanks to the Pit, which I read was just picked up for his season two, having the demanding life of actually nursing, having the wife and kids and that part of your life, having blood work, popping up on other people's sessions, the Fleetwood Mac, etc. It sounds like you don't have any more room on your plate for looking for new endeavors.
I think for now I'm kind of like stable and full in terms of the amount of hours in the day to do all of the things. But
Yeah.
I want to keep all these plates spinning. I worked really hard to become a nurse, so that's something I'm never gonna let go of. People are like, "Are you gonna quit nursing now?" I'm like, "God, no." I mean, it was so empowering to be able to leave the show and know, I can go right into more work. I like work. It makes me feel good. I don't like to sit around uh, too much. I sort of go stir crazy pretty quickly. So I'll keep doing that, but also I just need to keep my cup full with my creative outlet and endeavors too. And it's been really fun to go back to acting, especially 20 years later, because I just visually am a different person and can play different
Sure.
roles now. I would love to do more of that as well.
Well, I have one more nursing question, one more music question, and then you're set free from this guy. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you talk about your journey with nursing, somebody in my family was on Broadway and then decided a couple of years ago during the pandemic to get the nursing license and
Mhm.
then kind of goes back and forth between nursing and acting roles and all that. Do you find that that's more of a common career path that nurses also have a side hustle or an entertainment career?
Well, Yeah, I don't think that's like uncommon, especially being in LA. You know, like it feels like everyone wants to be part of show business sometimes. So there was like definitely a group of other nurses and things working in medical capacity on the
Hmm.
Pitt. I think a lot of them expressed interest in wanting to do more of that kind of work and things like that. So I don't think it's uncommon, especially here, but I don't think it's like the norm either. I think for a lot of people, it's one or the other. But
Hmm.
then there's a certain sect of people that kind of are like a hybrid, and I guess that's where I fit.
It definitely has evolved because it used to be you're a nurse, so you only do nurse things. And now you never know what a person's other job, if they have other job, if they have solo albums are, etc. So the last
Right.
question for you, what's the last concert that you went to as a fan or a spectator, not because you were going to guest on stage?
Uh, Gosh, I went through a bunch of shows all at one time last year. Okay, oh, I know what the last show I saw. The last show I saw was a fire benefit for the LA wildfires that my friend Megan Helsel put on. She's an amazing woman. She's like one of my advisors and closest, like, wouldn't say
Is
mentor.
that to interrupt you, Megan from Grandstand?
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
yeah,
She's
yeah.
an old friend of mine, and she put together with some other people this amazing sort of wildfire relief concert at the Palladium. So it was really fun. It was all acoustic, but my friends from Phantom Planet were there. My friend Jenny Lewis played. St. Vincent was there. The Linda Lindas. It was a pretty great night. Fred Armisen did his stand up for drummers kind of style, drum comedy bit. It was a lot of fun and it was cool. It raised money for a great cause, obviously.
Paltrocast.